Cool. Hello and welcome everybody to our second edition of Tableau in the Wild. It's that wild, it's nighttime in England, so this is why it's relatively dark, because if I have bright lights now, I'm just not going to sleep, so it's not going to be good. So apologies if I seem a little bit slow, but thankfully my co-host Dan Montgomery is going to look after you well today. So Dan and I, just as a reminder, we had this crazy idea when we met up in Seattle that we were going to just do this kind of thing where we talk about people and how they've managed to deploy Tableau, because our day jobs are looking and helping at people do that. And we were discovering that loads of people had loads of great insight that if you're at the conference, at the Tableau conference, you see some of those examples come through and hear people's examples, but we're conscious that there's lots of other stories out there. So we wanted to kind of work with loads of different people across loads of different organizations to see what was possible. And Catherine Rush of TD Bank was our first interviewee, so if you've not seen that, check that out on YouTube. And it's my great pleasure to say hello to Vanessa Newton from the University of Kansas today, who will give us a very different perspective than banking. It's the joy of the academic institutions. So she's got a great story and contacted Dan after seeing his talk in Seattle. So I'm slightly worried about what's going to happen because Vanessa contacted Dan after seeing that talk. But anyway, we'll move swiftly on. Catherine saw me in a high-vis vest and a yellow jacket, and she contacted me for the first. So who knows where interviewee number 3 is going to come from. So we'll get to Dan shortly, but most importantly, let's introduce Vanessa. So Vanessa, who are you and what do you do?
My name is Vanessa Newton, and I work for the University of Kansas in the University Career Center, and I'm a program analyst in the department. So basically anything that has anything to do with data, I do. So building surveys, analyzing the data, doing assessments, research, all that kind of stuff is kind of what my job is.
Sweet. That's some of the hardest things to do in Tableau. So let's quiz you about those. Dan, do you want to take the lead on that?
Sure thing. Thank you very much for the introduction, Carl. Thank you for introducing yourself, Vanessa. I think just to provide a little bit more background to the work that you do, you know, a lot of us went to colleges in the UK, you go to university, but I think we would be at a loss to understand what's being collected about us, what is being tracked from a university perspective that they find interesting, that they can derive insight on. Is that something you can speak to?
Sure. Yeah. So one of the big projects that I work on is called a First Destination Survey, and this is a survey that we develop along with NACE, which is the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and we just collect data on graduates 6 months out from graduation. Where are our graduates at? And it kind of helps us determine the success of programs. We can look and dive in deep to that data. For those that attended career events, so career fairs, went and took assessments like Strengths Quest, Strong Interest, that kind of stuff, and see how they fare compared to their cohort who don't use the Career Center at all. Within the Career Center, we offer career coaching appointments, so people can come in and kind of learn about different career opportunities, resume review, cover letter review. We do mock interviews, all that sort of stuff. We run 7 career fairs a year with hundreds of employers that come, and so connecting students to those employers and that kind of stuff is what the Career Center does. We run interviews out of our office, so employers will come in and do on-campus interviewing and recruiting for students. I think that kind of covers briefly what we do, but all of those have their own assessment pieces if you want them to. So you could just say, yes, we have employers that come into our office, but how many employers do we have? What different types of employers do we have? And breaking it down by that and kind of using those analytics to know what our next year could look like and how many employers we should expect to come to career fairs and that kind of stuff. So it's stuff that maybe not necessarily you would need an analyst in your department, but it's really useful to have an analyst in your department because then you can kind of use that data to plan your strategic plan for the next year.
Awesome. It sounds like the University of Kansas is really trying to take a not just a reactive but also a proactive approach to the services that they're offering their students.
Yes, very much so. We are looking at all of our services, and you guys will see, I'll show you the social media dashboard that I've created, and that is so that we know that everything that we're putting out on social media has purpose. It's categorized in some way, shape, or form, and we're not just putting stuff out on Twitter whenever about whatever. It's very planned out to a T of what we're going to be sharing, how we're going to be sharing it, and even when, what date, time, day of the week, all that kind of stuff.
Cool. And well, at least what I think is very interesting about this is, and you know, I can't say per se, maybe you can provide more context of, you know, how much of this you guys have come up with yourself, how much of this is, you know, things you've borrowed, but at the same time, what you're talking about is very repeatable across universities across the country, across the world, and you know, so I think that's a natural segue to let us, you know, you reached out to me about, you know, you guys use Tableau, so you're informed about that, and it sounds like you use Tableau to analyze a lot of this data that you're collecting.
Yep.
Whether it's social media or whether it's the program analysis. So what has kind of using Tableau been like for your organization, and whether that's you used to use something else and now you use Tableau, or you know, Tableau is just what you've started with, but it's enabled you to do X, Y, and Z?
Sure. So I'll start off with that my background in data analysis is strictly in SPSS, which is kind of a psychological social sciences software that we use to analyze data. So I was very well versed in using that software to analyze data, and then I would just put everything into reports, just using Microsoft Word and Excel to create graphs and diagrams and everything. And we got started using Tableau, I think we downloaded the trial in June. And what we were looking for was something that we could use the first destination survey to report more easily. So last year we did 70-some reports, individual reports for every single academic department, and that takes up tons of time. And so we were looking for a way and a solution so that we could make it easier for departments to get that data, and Tableau was that answer for that. And then since we downloaded Tableau and since we purchased it, it was kind of, okay, use it as much as you can. And so I just started creating dashboards with any Excel document that I had, mainly just to learn the features in it and everything. But now it's to the point where it's, okay, we can create a dashboard with this, or, you know, with social media or anything like that. And so it started off with just being kind of a solution to freeing up some staff for the weeks that they took to create these individual reports for departments, and kind of manifested into dashboard craziness in my office every day.
Dashboard craziness. I like the sound of that. Very cool. Well, and again, to reiterate, you know, the types of programs that you're running, the data that you're collecting, you know, sounds, you know, could be very universal across universities, but at the same time, it sounds like before you using Tableau is a time-consuming process to analyze and deliver that, but once you had Tableau, now all of a sudden it's kind of like, what can't we do?
Right.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much. You had previewed a dashboard that you had built on social media analysis. Would you mind sharing that?
Sure. Oh, let me share my screen.
Sure thing.
Okay. So
Cool.
this is our social media dashboard. Obviously, it's still kind of in beginning stages. As you guys can see, a description can be entered here. It's not something we would have, but what I want to point out on this is the font. So since I am at a university, we have branding requirements that we have to meet. So color and font are certain branding requirements that we have to make sure that we are following. So this is a KU approved font that I'm using, and I just went in and customized all of that. Beyond that, you can see that I created this in a storyboard because it just made the most amount of sense with the amount of data that we have. So here you can see that I have like a date sorter, so you can choose whatever range of dates you want to go through to see the information. We've got Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and kind of our total numbers of followers on this dashboard. I won't go through every single thing, but this is one of what I was talking about earlier, that we have specific times that we like to post. So you can see I broke down by impressions on Twitter how many people are seeing our tweets. So it's broken down by hour, but then if you go below that, we've got it broken down even further so that we know at 2:55, which is typically when classes are getting out, it's a pretty good time to post. People are seeing that. And Dan, you'll be happy to see that there are customized tooltips in there. And so that makes it easier for the people who are viewing it to know exactly what they're looking at.
Yay!
I'm a massive proponent of that as well, Vanessa. So it's yeah, no, I was about to make that comment, but yes, we all love customized tooltips.
You'll notice that the color here, well, you guys may not know this, but this is Jayhawk blue, or whatever that specific blue color is supposed to be. And so all throughout the dashboard, that's the theme of everything is in a specific font, and all the dashboards have a certain color to them. I'll show...
Just quickly on that, because that's a really interesting point. For people who haven't customized color and added fonts to Tableau, how easy did you find that to do?
It's pretty easy, especially for the font. All you have to do is just go into format. I just use I think it's the format menu. I just use that, and with the fonts, it's really easy. And even with the colors too, all you have to do is go in and just choose the colors. But you can also go in and specify with the red, yellow, and blue, I think, what the numbers are in that. I don't have
the RGB
my actual
numbers?
Yeah. The university provides actual numbers of what the actual shade is, so that's how I got that customization.
Awesome. Cool. There is another hint out there that there's a preference file that you can actually load those colors into once. So after that, they'll load with your version of Tableau. So you'll have your KU colors in there if you want to. So let's try and add that to, or I'll try and dig it out from one of the many blog articles out there about that. So I'll add that to the YouTube link for people to see that if they've never come across that, which I just think is really cool and easy. But yeah, no, it's easy to do it both ways. That's great.
I'll show just one more, just to show the difference. Colors that we use. So this is just this is crimson red, so that's an actual KU approved color, and then we just I just did it between red and blue on the color selection, and then it just kind of, you know, went from there. So those are kind of what I'm looking at for the dashboards.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, that was a really cool example. Thank you so much for sharing. I think, you know, it's everyone, especially, you know, anyone in the organization who is involved with their social media process, I think is very interested in the things that, like you built. Like, all right, what are our time segments? When are we gathering impressions? And you know, it sounds like you were able to use that to help focus actions.
Right, and it won't be useful data until a year out because we're on semesters, and so by the end of the fall semester, we'll be looking at what does winter break look like, and then we'll be chunking it out to what does the spring semester look like. And because class schedules vary from fall to spring, it'll be different information, but once we're a year out, then we'll have data that is going to be really useful. So this is our year one, or our baseline data of what we're doing, and we'll be able to build from there.
Awesome. Very cool. In the interest of fairness, is there anything that you found working with Tableau, your experience with either the software or the development, that, you know, this is definitely a form if you have any features that you would like to request, or you know, something that, you know, if you have a question that maybe either we can answer or we can post up with the video and hopefully kind of generate a conversation around that. Is there anything, so to bring it back, is there anything that experiences that either, you know, you wish you had, what you wish was included in Tableau, or questions about, you know, you wish there was a way to do a particular thing that, you know, we can help generate the conversation around?
Yeah, I'll preface this with saying that I'm still a fairly new user. Even though we downloaded it in June, I had job changes and we hired somebody new, so training that person. So I've probably been using Tableau for about 6 to 8 weeks. So there could be many things.
You generated that social media dashboard in that short amount of time. Well done.
One thing that I've noticed, and I don't know, KU does have kind of firewalls protecting their dashboards and stuff, so this could be a different issue. We have a test server, so my dashboard is on a test server and not our actual server. But there was, I believe, in the dashboard function that you can pull out web pages and have the web pages on a dashboard. And so I did that for our 3 social media accounts. But when I publish that dashboard and look at it in the test server, there's nothing there. And when I download the dashboard from the server, it shows up when I download it. But when it's on the actual server, it's just a blank page. There's nothing there at all. So I'm not sure if I'm doing something wrong or if it's just the server or what it is.
Carl's nodding.
Yeah, it sounds like the server doesn't have an external, or the ability to contact the web or the actual internet. So it sounds like it's working on an intranet, and I've had exactly the same issue in the past. It might just be about contacting your IT guys around that, but yes, that can be an issue. It's not necessarily part of the server setup from the experience, although I'm sure I'm going to have loads of my colleagues at the information lab hit me tomorrow and tell me I'm wrong, but it's not actually part of the server setup. It's the actual physical box or the virtual machine and what connectivity that has. So it's a little bit kind of heavy IT geekery behind the scenes, but it should be possible to do that. We mentioned it in last week's session, but Peter Jokes and I at Barclays, we used to have a dashboard. There was a scatter plot that when you hovered over the branch as one of the plots and one of the marks on the scatter plot, that you would get a little URL that would pop up and you could go and see the branch on Google, on Street View on Google, which was great. And we actually found the issue was on the user side, that some people didn't have access to the internet. So it's this kind of rock and hard place of it. If you can see it on your desktop, then you know it's not really about your own machine's configuration. It's kind of about the server instead. That's normally what I've found, but like I say, I'm sure I'll get kicked tomorrow by somebody who will prove me entirely wrong, or someone will leave a lovely comment on this proving me wrong, which is always welcome. I need to learn. You were saying about the server being pretty new. how did you find those early days of I've got Tableau on my machine, I'm doing some cool stuff, sharing it around? How did that work before you? Because it sounds like the server's pretty new too, or has that always been there?
No, the server, I believe that KU's had Tableau for probably at least a year. I'm not sure on that. I could definitely be wrong. And I actually haven't published a single thing on our actual server because it has to go through a number of steps and get approved and all that kind of stuff. And so I've only published things on our test server, which works fine for me because I can still see it. Just nobody else can. So none of my work has really been published on any server yet. Does that? I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no. The fact you've got the server there is great, and it's I'm always intrigued about how other people share their work when they haven't got a server. Because you were saying earlier about how you had to produce, or previously the job role had to produce all of those individual reports. Now, I used to run an MI team that was all done in Excel, chucked into PowerPoint. Those PowerPoints were sent round, and even if you had Tableau in that situation, unless you're using Tableau Reader, which is an individual piece, then what Catherine from TD Bank was talking about last time around how that's shared, but just that server becomes that massive empowerer of being able to kind of really use the data the way that you want the user to as well, which I think is kind of key, so that's great.
Yeah, and that's a whole different kind of issue for us because all the dashboards are published behind a firewall. Only faculty and staff have any access to see dashboards, and they have to be given access by a certain person to even see any of the dashboards. And so we are currently campaigning to get funding for Tableau Public Premium because, like I said, with those first destination surveys, that data is going to be so useful for so many people, not just faculty and staff. Prospective students, current students, anybody can really get employers, parents, and so we want to try and get public premium just to suppress the ability to export the data because we want to still have it protected. But right now, everything has got to be on a server and we can't publish anything directly to our website. I think Texas A&M is one of the ones on the list of Viz in the Wild that has dashboards that are published directly to their websites, embedded in the websites, and it's really cool and really useful, and I hope we get it.
I think Ben Jones's ears just started to flutter when he heard that someone wanted to publish data on Tableau Public. If you haven't already been in touch with him, we'll certainly get you two in touch.
Okay.
He's the project manager for Tableau Public, and I think what you're talking about is an amazing use case about wanting to you're doing some curating, you're generating some information about at the end of the day, it's with the Career Center, you want your graduates to get jobs. And
right.
If you're successful doing that, you want to tell other people about how successful you were so that you can get more graduates.
Yeah, and I'll say that it's not really, Career Centers have changed, so it's not really our job to get people jobs. It's our job to help prepare them to get jobs.
Fair enough.
So that I don't get any backlash on that. And so
that's right. I said really that. I said that, not you.
Really, what the purpose of that first destination survey is for students to be able to go in and say, I'm an English major, or I'm interested in working in San Antonio. What kind of jobs? What kind of employers? What kind of positions are there? What wages can I expect to make out there? What kind of background, because we ask if they had internships or worked part-time when they're in college, what should I expect? And that really helps empower students to take, the reins of their own life and be able to say, okay, I can dig in deep into this. This is a dashboard that's got all this information. I'm this major, I'm interested in this field or anything like that, and they can make those choices and have data to back them up.
Wow, that's an awesome use case, and really applaud you for thinking about using the information that you curate and making that available to help people. We've all been in that place where we're studying, and all of a sudden, what's the next step? And
Right.
so,
just
props to
to
you
let you know
for having some vision around.
Just to let you know, Ben Jones has just commented, "Go Tableau public." So it's happened already. So I'm sure Ben will be in touch very quickly after this. It's kind of crazy that you guys are making quite an impact externally. If you can kind of get that outward-facing material, what's the kind of reaction been internally? You're saying that there's kind of this chance to play with data more in these data dashboard craziness afternoons. What have you seen from kind of people who have had access to Tableau and how their jobs have changed?
We have a Tableau users group on campus, and we meet once a quarter. And I have only been to one meeting because I joined Tableau kind of mid-quarter. And so for the most part, I think people are interested in it, but they run into the problem that they have their job that they have to do, and then they have to learn Tableau. And I am extremely lucky that my job is basically Tableau now, and so I'm in it day in and day out, which is how I was able to create a very detailed dashboard with all the customization and that kind of stuff. But there's a lot, I've heard some frustration of people that they only go into Tableau once a month or so, and so it's having to relearn it every single time. And when you're not in it every day or often, it makes it difficult. And I think we're still in that beginning stage. Even though KU's had Tableau for a while, our Office of Institutional Research and Planning, they've had it and been able to use it, and they've made some amazing dashboards. And we're kind of, we're getting new crops of people that are coming in, and so it's still that I'm in a beginner stage, and it's frustrating because I don't know how to use all the features or anything like that, and maybe they don't necessarily have the time to watch Dan's crazy presentation or figure all the quirks out of it, because it gets down to you have to have your Excel spreadsheet set up in a certain way, and I can't remember if it was Dan or Anya that talked about reverse engineering spreadsheets off of Tableau Public, or reverse engineering dashboards off of Tableau Public, and I did that and figured out I had my spreadsheet set up completely wrong. And if you don't have the time to do that, it can get frustrating because you're like, why isn't this working? Mm-hmm. So I think we're in the beginning stages, but having that users group I think is really going to help people out because we can come together and hear concerns and troubleshoot them and all that kind of stuff.
Well, props to you then, because that's it's a great way. I mean, we've seen that across the board within cities, within organizations, getting that user group, letting people know that there's someone you can reach out to, letting people know that if you're experiencing a frustration, this is a way that you can talk and share and hopefully alleviate that. So props to you. Best of luck going forward. For anybody out there who's listening, if you're in the Kansas area, I don't know what city is
Lawrence.
In Florence?
Lawrence.
Lawrence. Apologies. Anyone in the Lawrence area? Anyone in the Lawrence area of Kansas, if you want to get a local community group together, that's definitely the right thing to do. You're on the right track, and it does take some time. So best of luck. We're kind of bumping up on the edge, but I would be remiss if we didn't get a chance to talk basketball, because I know Carl's a big fan. University of Kansas, one of the premier college basketball programs, so I'm just going to let you two have at it and talk basketball for a little bit.
All I'll say, Vanessa, is obviously a basketball career in NBA is great, so I would recommend sending any amazing basketball stars that you have in the direction of San Antonio. You know, Tim Duncan's getting a bit older now, so is Manu. We need some younger players. So if you've got any hints that you could kind of pass in the direction of Pop or RC, then, you know, let's flag them up and see what we can do. But no, I was going to just say thank you so much for the session today. It's been really useful, and it's really nice to see somebody who we normally talk to the person who brought Tableau into a company or is in that central team, where you're kind of on the outside and you're kind of catching up, and it's really interesting to kind of hear some of those frustrations and struggles around that. But what I'd also say is stick with it, because it's made an amazing start. And also, if there's anybody out there who wants to volunteer some time to Vanessa, her user group, and actually kind of just put forward, even if it's like a Hangout or Skype call, whatever, just to kind of go and do some kind of ad hoc training to kind of help the guys along. It sounds like they're doing some great stuff. So please put your hand up for that. That would be, I'm sure that'd be appreciated and help you guys running if possible. So on that, yeah, Dan's right. We're coming up to the half hour. So thank you very much again, Vanessa. Amazingly interesting story. Thank you also for having a minion behind you at all times. He's been very well behaved.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. And thank you, Mr. Montgomery, for some good questions as well. So thank you, everyone, for listening. We will be back soon. I'm about to take a big trip to Australia for 7 weeks, so we're going to try and maybe squeeze in another one of these before I go. But if we don't, apologies, and we will see you all in the new year. But if there is anybody out there who would like to tell their story, like Vanessa has done, like Catherine before, then please let us know, because it's really helping people, and we've got a lot of great feedback from the last session. I'm sure we always want around people kind of sharing that experience. So please get in contact with us if you can. So on that note, Dan, if you want to stop the big red button, and we'll speak to you all soon. Thanks, guys.
Take care, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Vanessa.